Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to r/entitled people, where people seem to think that they can do no wrong and that they are the center of the universe. Guys, the stories in this one are absolutely ridiculous. We've got entitled celebrities, Karen's calling 911 on 10-year-olds, and grown adults throwing tantrums. It's gonna be a good one. Grab yourselves a drink, sit back, kick your feet up, and get ready to shake your heads. Okay, so let me tell you about the time that I saw one of the most entitled people ever, while I was having lunch on a patio. The story isn't how I dealt with her though. I and other 30 people having lunch at a restaurant just watched. On this day, Karen had blocked a fire hydrant while running into a business. My friend and I were joking that it would be instant karma for a cop to show up right away and just ticket her. Lo and behold, 10 minutes later, we saw a police officer stroll by, whip out his ticket book, and start writing her a ticket for blocking the fire hydrant. Now, I guess she was warned that there was a cop outside writing her a ticket. Anyways, she comes running out of the business and starts yelling at the officer to stop writing that ticket right now, and that she was gonna move her car. We heard her say that she was only in there for 30 seconds and was leaving right away. The officer held his ground and decided to write the ticket anyway. The woman then starts screaming at the officer that she's studying law and that he's wasting people's tax money on stupid things like this, when he could be responding to kidnappings or something more serious. My friend and I and everybody on the patio was invested in this. We all then gasp when Karen suddenly gets a smirk on her face and she shouts at the cop, "Well, now that you've ticketed me, I can just stay parked here because you can't write another ticket." And with that, she stomps back into the store. Now, this was right across the street from a fire station. It took all about 30 seconds before the chief walks out to address the officer, picks up his phone, and called the towing company, and had them on the way. The tow truck shows up, hooks up the car, and was gone before the woman came out. I felt like he was in and out in less time than it's taken me to type this. The aftermath was hilarious. She flipped her lid when she came out. We all watched as she pulls out her phone to call 911, saying that her vehicle's been stolen. She was screaming into the phone in hysterics, demanding an officer get on scene immediately. It was at this point that one of the guys who was sitting near my table spoke up and said, "Hey, it didn't get stolen, it was towed." And hearing that, she goes ballistic. She was screaming into her phone, demanding to talk to the cop that ticketed her. Now, I guess the officer was still around at this point, as it was a short period of time. So the officer shows back up holding some lunch, and Karen just unloads on him. He just stands there and listens while she yells at him, screaming at him that the ticket was enough and that he didn't have to tow her car too, that he was a crooked cop, a thief, and that he'll pay for the impound fees as he did this. We then hear, "I didn't have your vehicle towed. It was towed by the authority of the state fire marshal. That's why you don't park in front of fire hydrants." The officer then took off, leaving the woman frantically dialing numbers on her cell phone. Best entertainment ever during my lunch. Guys, I love this story. That woman got off so lucky. I've seen videos of firemen just smashing car windows that are obstructing fire hydrants to run a hose through it. And that's why you don't park by them. It would have been so funny if the firemen just came out and did that though, right? Just to teach her a lesson. "Oh, I'm sorry, there's no fire, but we need to test the hydrants regularly." This story happened years and years ago. I worked as a nurse long ago, and I was working a very busy third shift, when a tour bus pulls up to the ambulance bay, completely blocking the whole bay. Word spread fast through the hospital that there was a very important, very injured celebrity singer in incredible pain, following a concert that had been performed 50 miles away in a very large town with many hospitals. Now, this celebrity demanded that the ER doctor call an eye specialist to come to her bus, as she was so famous that she didn't want to be bothered by fans while she was getting treated. A nurse went to the bus and told her that she would have to come inside, and she would have to be seen in the order that she arrived, unless an emergency came in, and then she'd be seen after the emergency. The security guard also told them to move the bus, as an ambulance was on its way with an unresponsive patient, and she wouldn't leave. It was so embarrassing. She kept screaming, "Don't you know who I am? I have an emergency, and I demand to be seen right now. Tell that hick doctor to get his ass out here right now. The bus isn't moving until my eye gets treated, blah blah blah. And I could have gone to any hospital, but I came here. You should be proud that I came here, blah blah blah." At this point, the ambulance was turning into the ER parking lot and pulled around to the front door. Right after the ambulance pulled in, a police car pulled up and a police lieutenant got out and walked inside. Now you could hear the wonderful celebrity screaming and cussing, and after 20 minutes of her tour bus sitting in the ambulance bay, the ER doctor went out to the bus. The first thing she said after he introduced himself was, "Are you a specialist? I deserve the best." He told her no, but he was gonna look at the eye first and go from there. When she told him what was wrong, the doctor asked if she was kidding. She said it felt like she had something in her eye. It had been itching and burning since she left the concert, and she wanted a specialist to take a look at it so she could be sure it was done right. The doctor didn't say anything, he just examined her eye. It was a scratch, probably from her rubbing it. He then gave her some eye drops and started to leave, and she starts yelling, "That's why I wanted a specialist. You are just a flunky. You are gonna make me lose my eye. Don't you know who I am?" The doctor had enough, and he started to turn around. The police lieutenant had come out to the bus with him and stopped the doctor and told him that he would take care of it. Before the doctor left, he then told this overprivileged, stuck-up, self-centered celebrity to take your bus and leave. If you're dissatisfied with your care, there's another hospital a few miles away that's smaller and not as well staffed. Why do you think you are more important than anybody else? Especially an unresponsive child that had to wait for care because your bus was taking up the ambulance bay. Your lucky privacy laws prevent me from calling every newspaper and every news program around. I'll bet your fans would really love you then, especially since you preach that you're just one of them. He then got off the bus. The driver pulls out, and that's the last that was said about it. Back to business as usual. This was over 20 years ago. My boyfriend at the time was a security guard, so he saw it and heard it all. I never bought another album, song, or anything of the singer. I'll also never say the name of that singer, and I hope she learns some humility and respect for others. Guys, I really want to know who this entitled celebrity singer is so badly. 20 years ago, it could be pretty much anybody. And hey, props to that doctor for hopefully helping her see what an entitled brat she was. I used to go to school with the most entitled girl ever. I first met her in elementary, and I knew early on that she wasn't very nice. She would tease me, trip me, make ugly faces, so I just avoided hanging out with her. In junior high and high school, she was a part of the school dance team and she was popular. I had a whole different set of friends, so again we were distant, besides crossing paths in the hall and her giving me an ugly snarl. Now, I never really thought much about her, except that she wasn't nice and her name rhymed with the B word, and how I thought it was fitting. So it was our high school's final soccer game for the seniors, which I don't know anything about or ever go to, but my friend's girlfriend was on the team and he wanted me to come watch with him, so I did. I saw that she was the goalie, and she had been for the whole game. Then the coach said it was time for the other goalie to play, and I couldn't believe my eyes. She had a huge whiny fit. She stomped up and down the field screaming, "Everybody knows I'm the best. I need to play. This is important. We need to win, not lose." She did this for like 15 minutes, and then she sat down, refusing to get off the field, like a toddler who was told they can't have any candy. It was a horrific scene, and she did it in front of the whole stadium. The whole school and their families were there. It was packed full, and she was screaming so loud that everything she said was heard clearly. It ended when the other goalie came up to her, comforted her, and then handed her gloves back, and said that she should play, and that she wouldn't mind sitting out. She then gets up off the ground and played like nothing happened, and I'm still in shock. And guess what happens? It goes into overtime, or final death, or whatever it's called, and they ask the goalie who hasn't played for the whole game to play. Again, she starts screaming and stomping up and down the field, kicking the goalpost and throwing whatever she can find. She was saying horrible things like, "I'm the best. She can't do it. We'll lose." But mostly she was screaming long and loud, pulling up grass and behaving like I've never seen anyone. And she got her way again. It was shocking to see a 17-year-old person act like that. I later found out that the goalie and her were best friends. Not just friends, they were hanging out all day, every day, like best friends. Now doesn't she sound like a wonderful person? Way to let everybody in the whole school see what an entitled, spoiled brat you are. Also, guys, I've been racking my brain around this. What girl's name rhymes with the B word? Unless I'm thinking of the wrong B word. We have our very own neighborhood Karen, who often thrills us with her unwanted interferences, but not for much longer. She used to call the police on neighborhood kids for setting up a lemonade stand, and she's also put notes on everybody's doors telling us that we need to seek her approval before having a garage sale at our houses, because she doesn't like cars parked on her street, as they upset her dog and scare her kids. She's also told everybody to not allow their kids to ride their bikes past her house, and trying to dictate what color Christmas lights we should put up, and it's been never-ending entertainment. Now, usually I laugh and ignore her, but in late spring, she forced me to engage. So the family directly across from me are Hispanic, and they are some of the nicest, most thoughtful people that I've ever met. They have a son who's 10 years old now, and for the last few years, he's helped many of us and our neighbors with chores around our houses, and he never asks for any money. Of course, many of us give him money anyway, but if you know him, he doesn't do these things for money. He does it because it makes him feel good to help people. He told me that one time, that he likes to help people and make them smile. On snow days when school was cancelled, he would often get up early and shovel snow off of sidewalks and driveways of our elderly neighbors, before anybody asked him to do it. If he saw that you had a lot of groceries, he would run over and jump right in helping. He would also pull weeds and rake leaves, anything he could do to help. The family has a beautiful pear tree in their front yard, and every year, he bags up the pears and distributes them to us. His family has lived in the neighborhood for many years, even before our dear Karen moved in and tried to take over. It seems that she's always had something against this boy. Anyway, he and a couple of other neighborhood kids set up a lemonade stand with the goal of raising money to donate to the local children's hospital. The hospital had recently treated one of their friends from school for injuries from a farm accident. They had a nice stand set up that his father helped him build, and a large painted sign saying that they were collecting money for the children's hospital. Now, our neighborhood is in a rural area. We have no sidewalks, but the road is wide with room to pull off and stop. Many people ride by on their way to town and back. They were doing a good amount of business at their lemonade stand. Well, Karen decided that he and his friends were intending to keep the money and not donate it at all. So she called the sheriff's office and accused these kids of defrauding a charity. Not to be outdone by a regular Karen, our Karen also called the local newspaper to announce this major fraud going on in the neighborhood. As I said, we live in a small town, so the newspaper actually sent someone out to see what's going on, but not before the police showed up. When the deputies arrived, a few of us noticed them right away, as we don't see them much in our neighborhood. Karen also saw them arrive. She then marches down her driveway holding her dog, a Yorkie, that I swear has the same haircut as Karen, but it looked better on the dog and the dog was well more behaved. Karen starts yelling how the kids were using the children's hospital's name to collect money to spend on themselves, and how they should all be arrested. Also, that people were stopping in cars and parking on her street and scaring her dog, who at the time looked like he wanted to get down and play with the kids. After her tirade, the deputy turned and asked the kids for their side of the story, and that's when Karen made her first fatal error. She screams at the deputy saying, "I'm the one who pays your salary. It's your job to do as I say, not take the word of some border-jumping Mexicans." Now, she hadn't really noticed that the deputy that she was talking to was Hispanic. I had a hard time not laughing out loud as the deputy starts talking to my younger neighbor in Spanish. The look on Karen's face was priceless. After talking with the young man, his friends, and his father, he was satisfied that they indeed intended to donate the money. But Karen was not to be denied her justice against these kids, who had committed this vile offense on her street. She then insisted that they didn't have a permit to operate a business, and they should be written a ticket and forced to close down. Besides, no one asked her if it was okay to open a lemonade stand in her neighborhood. At this point, the deputies had enough of Karen, and so had I. The deputy told her that outside the city limits, there was no law against having a roadside stand, and no permit is needed. As long as your stand is on your property and far enough back from the road, it's legal. It had been about 45 minutes to an hour since we'd all been out on the streets, and I asked Karen loudly enough for everybody to hear, "Hey, where's your kids while you're out here on the street?" She snidely replies, "It's really none of your business, but if you must know, my children are playing in my swimming pool in my backyard." I then say to her, "So, while you're out here bitching about someone else's kids, you left your 2 kids under the age of 6 all alone in a swimming pool? Your little girl is around 3 years old, and you left her and her brother who's around 5 alone in a swimming pool?" Now that made both deputies take an immediate interest in Karen, and she visibly shrank. It was like watching the air go out of a balloon. The lemonade stand was completely forgotten about, and things shifted to Karen. Once the deputy told Karen that they needed to go to her house to make sure her children were safe, that's exactly what they did. After making sure her kids were indeed okay, the deputies came back and asked several of us if she often left her children alone like that. Now, I wanted to say that she did, but I told the truth and said that I didn't know. Others said the same thing. The deputy said that they had no choice but to refer the case to Child Protective Services. Now, I don't know what happened with that, but a for sale sign went up in front of Karen's house about 3 weeks later. Because Karen had called the newspaper to make sure that everybody knew about her stopping this major criminal activity, there was a story about it in the local newspaper several days later, making sure that her fame as an ultimate Karen was well known. They talked to several of my neighbors, but I had no interest in talking to them. I guess they talked to the sheriff's office as well. Maybe that's the reason for the for sale sign in her yard. It's kind of unfair to her husband, who's always been nice and friendly, and how he could put up with her is something I'll never understand. I guess love can make you overlook many things. But you should never underestimate karma. It floats around, waiting for the right time to land, and when it does, it's a bitch. Okay, seriously, I can't believe she called police on a kid's lemonade stand. Like, what kind of heartless monster calls the police and the media accusing 10-year-old kids of faking a charity to steal money from people? And I can't believe she even went as far as trying to get them shut down for not having a business license. Oh my goodness, like, good riddance. I bet a lot of people jumped for joy when they saw that for sale sign in her yard. My former next door neighbor was a cop. We had a family a few houses down the cul-de-sac with a young son who would drive like a maniac and couldn't be told. One early morning, cop neighbor pings him doing 78 kilometers an hour in a 60 zone. Now, this was back when our fine increments were 15, 30, and 45 over. He was prepared to waive the fine for a decent excuse, or at least drop him down to the 0 to 15 over bracket, reducing the monetary fine and the demerit points. But this kid stared a gift horse in the mouth and lost. Cop neighbor runs his license, confirms it's him, and decides to have a little chat. Asks him why he's speeding. The kid says he's late for work at 5:30 a.m. There's hardly any other cars on the road, so he was about to let him off, but after a lecture. He starts the lecture and tells him that he needs to take a serious look at his driving and learn to behave himself. He also mentioned that he had reports from neighbors about the young kid tearing up the suburban streets and the dangers it posed. Now, this cop had 2 young kids at the time, and our street always had kids out on bikes, skateboards, kicking a ball, etc. The young kid claims he's innocent, and that all the neighbors must be big Karens. Cops then told him, "I live at house number this," and the young kid's face went white. He got the fine, 15 to 30 kilometers over, but that's not the end. Because he'd already lost points, that put him over on accumulated points, and he got a 90-day suspension on his license. This meant that he couldn't drive to work, and we noticed the father started driving him around everywhere. This father was a big burly man, well over 6 feet tall. A few days later, the cop neighbor's on his porch having a beer with another neighbor, when the father strolls up and asks, "Are you the cop who booked my son on Saturday morning?" The cop was a very slim build, and looked like the father could snap him in half. He quietly responded, "Yes, I got him on the radar fair and square," expecting a showdown. Instead, the father held out his hand. They shook hands, and the father told him that he was pleased that it happened, and it's about time the kid got taught a lesson. The father's pleas for his son to slow down were falling on deaf ears. Now the kid had no choice. Oh, and the best part, when the cop explained why he didn't waive the ticket after what the kid said, the father decided that he was no longer going to give the kid a ride to and from work. The cop took great delight in waving to him from his front porch, as he rode past on his push bike. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of our slash entitled people. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, as I sure as heck did. If you missed the last episode on the channel, I'll link it right here. OP's insane mom says that she owns her forever. It's such a ridiculous story. So go check it out if you haven't, and myself and Stevie Boy will see you guys in the next one. We love you.